Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into a topic that, well, it really affects everyone, whether you're prepping for a big meeting or, trying to get up to speed in a new field, or maybe you're just curious. We're talking about how to learn things faster, more efficiently, like a shortcut to being properly informed. And, what's really interesting is that science actually gives us ways to do this just by understanding how our brains really function. Like our sources point out this kind of surprising thing. Learning gets easier and actually more enjoyable when your curiosity is high. So following that curiosity, it doesn't just make it fun, it really fires up your motivation.
Exactly. And that's pretty much our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack a mix of science-backed strategies, some really powerful techniques, and just practical habits to optimize how you learn. Think of your brain like this amazing computer, right? By optimizing how we study, not just, how much time we sink into it, we can get much better results and faster too. In today's world, there's always something new to learn. Right. So mastering these techniques isn't just like a nice bonus. It's a real advantage. We'll cover active recall, spaced repetition, the Feynman Technique, also the role of curiosity, your mindset, lots of other smart habits.
Yeah.
So get ready to really equip yourself to enrich your mind.
Okay, so let's get into some of the science behind this faster learning idea. Research, consistently shows that active, effortful methods, they just work better than passively reviewing stuff. Think about it, just rereading a chapter again and again. It feels like you're doing something productive, right? It feels like you're absorbing it. But it's actually way less effective than trying to actively pull that information out of your memory. It's like, looking at gym equipment versus actually lifting the weights. One builds muscle, the other, not so much.
Yeah. And what's really key here is something called the testing effect.
Mm-hmm.
There was this University of Arizona study, and they called active recall, which is basically quizzing yourself, one of the strongest study methods.
Mm.
And the reason why it works is, well, it's crucial. When you try to remember something, your brain is way more likely to shift it from short-term temporary storage to more durable long-term memory.
Yeah.
Every time you test yourself, you're not just checking what you know. You're actively making that memory stronger. And if you combine that active recall with spaced repetition reviewing things over longer and longer time gaps,
Right.
it doesn't just boost recall right now, it makes the memory stick for much, much longer. What's really cool is that even trying to get the answer, even if you're wrong at first, that actually helps consolidate the learning. The struggle itself, that effort, is what makes the knowledge really yours.
That really changes how you think about studying, doesn't it? It's not just about soaking it in passively. The very act of trying to retrieve it, that's what locks it in.
Exactly.
So what does this mean practically for you listening? Well, a big 2024 review looked at college learning, found students who consistently used active recall, things like flashcards, self-testing, they just got higher grades. In fact, flashcards and practice tests were specifically correlated with higher GPA and test scores. The main takeaway is super clear. Active retrieval beats passive review every time. So let's dive into exactly how you can actually use these techniques. Okay, picture Maria. She's studying for a French exam. For ages, she just reread her notes, thought she's learning, but then, test time came. Blank.
Yeah, familiar story.
Right. But now she's switched completely to active recall. She makes flashcards, French on one side, English on the other. Instead of just reading, she's actively trying to remember the translation or the verb form. And boom, right away, she sees where she's weak. She can focus her energy where it's needed most. This simple change from passive reading to active retrieval makes a huge difference. So here are some specific ways you can force your brain to retrieve information. First up, flashcards. Classic, right? Question or term on one side, answer on the other. Quiz yourself, shuffle them up, do it again. Studies show that doing this often is directly linked to better results. Plus, there are apps like Anki or Quizlet that automate the spacing for you, showing you the card just when you might be about to forget it.
Really useful.
Next, self-testing or practice quizzes. A neat trick is to just look at headings in your notes or textbook, turn them into questions, then close the book and try to answer from memory. Got old homework? Practice exams? Use them. Reviews show that practice tests reliably boost learning and your confidence. Then there's teaching it, or this idea of rubber ducking. It's kind of a version of the Feynman technique. We'll get more into that soon. Basically, you explain the material out loud, like you're teaching someone else. Or even, talking to a rubber duck on your desk.
Doesn't matter who or what.
Right. It forces you to put it into your own words, and that immediately shows you where the gaps are. And finally, summary writing. After you study a section, try writing a summary, or maybe draw a concept map. But don't look at your notes while you do it.
That synthesis part is key.
Yeah, it's another powerful way to recall information, and it really makes you connect the dots between ideas.
The main point, the sort of umbrella idea here, is to really get away from just passive reading or highlighting. That feels good, but doesn't do much. Like the research says, even just a few minutes of quizzing yourself daily, that beats hours of rereading because you're actively working your memory muscle. Now, let's add spaced repetition to that. Instead of cramming everything to one huge session.
The all-nighter.
Exactly. Avoid that. Instead, you strategically revisit the material over days or weeks. Neuroscientist Benjamin Rotman explains that studying on different days leading up to a test means you're much more likely to remember it long term. It's totally different from cramming, which, yeah, might work for tomorrow's quiz, but the information just evaporates pretty quickly after that.
All right.
Spacing works with how our brains consolidate memories. Each review rebuilds and strengthens that memory trace.
So, okay, practically speaking, how would you schedule that? You could say, study something new today, quiz yourself tomorrow, then maybe again in 3 days, then a week later, and keep stretching it out. And that's exactly what those spaced repetition software systems like Anki do automatically.
Yeah.
They work on this cool finding that reviewing something right when you're just about to forget it, that dramatically increases how long you'll remember it.
Yeah, the timing is crucial.
Right. And our sources sum it up nicely. Combining active recall with spaced repetition increases your ability to recall needed information and retain it for longer.
And what's really amazing is how these techniques tap into different brain systems. If you imagine like a complex map of the mind, memory, thinking, attention, emotion, they all link up. Studies show active recall literally helps move info into long-term storage, while spaced repetition kind of weaves it deeper into your neural network, making it really stick.
Ah, interesting.
Now, using flashcards or self-quizzing with the spacing, it might feel harder. And honestly, it is more effort.
Okay.
And this is the counterintuitive bit, where it gets really interesting that effort creates what scientists call desirable difficulty.
Desirable difficulty, like good stress.
Kind of. It's
Yeah.
that productive struggle that actually cements the learning. Much better than just easy absorption. Even if you struggle, you get it wrong, you stumble. That struggle is incredibly productive for memory. Remember, retrieval itself is a way of learning. That extra effort now means much better recall later.
Understanding that, how the brain actually benefits from that struggle, that's powerful. Okay, let's switch gears slightly to another tool that uses this idea of active processing, the Feynman Technique. Named after Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist. He was famous for explaining really complex stuff in, like, super simple terms.
Brilliant communicator.
Totally.
Yeah.
And one learning guide calls the Feynman Technique the most effective method to quickly learn any subject. The core idea is basically teaching. You break down a concept until you could explain it clearly to, say, a 12-year-old.
Right. So how do you actually do it? It breaks down into 4 steps. And they're all active. They make you think about your thinking metacognition. First, choose your concept and map what you know. Grab a blank page, write the topic at the top, then just jot down everything you already understand about it. This makes you take stock right away. What's your starting point? Second, and this is really the heart of it, explain it in simple terms. Pretend you're teaching someone young, like that 12-year-old. Use simple words, analogies, examples. Write it out or say it aloud. If you catch yourself using jargon or kind of hand-waving over a tricky bit, that's a huge red flag. It means you don't fully get it yet.
Right. Reveals the gaps.
Exactly. Third step, review and refine. Pinpoint where you got stuck or use complex language. Go back to your source material just for those points. Study them until they click. Then try explaining them again, simply, in your own words. It's this cycle that embeds understanding. Finally, test by teaching. Try explaining the whole concept to a real person, or just aloud to yourself, but without looking at your notes. This final test ensures you've truly internalized it.
What's so cool about the Feynman technique is that it works for pretty much anything. It can be applied universally, irrespective of the subject.
Yeah.
It's less about the what and more about the how you're engaging with the material and constantly checking your own understanding.
Now, all these techniques are great, super useful, but let's not forget motivation and mindset. They're just as critical. And right at the core of that is curiosity. Our show's motto, right? When you come at learning with genuine curiosity, the whole process just feels rewarding in itself. Neuroscientist Celeste Kidd puts it nicely. You can think of curiosity as the process that guides the acquisition of knowledge. And the research backs this up. When we're really curious, learning comes more easily and is more enjoyable. Why? because an interested brain is just more efficient at encoding new information.
Yeah, you can see it, right? Think of a kid totally lost in a book, finding out what happens next, or that feeling of satisfaction when you finally crack a puzzle you've been stuck on.
Mm-hmm.
Educational psychologist Ku Murayama points out that this positive feeling is going to increase motivation to learn next time. So wonder actually sparks more curiosity. It feeds itself.
Exactly.
So you want to actively feed that spark. Ask why, ask how about things. Remind yourself how good it feels to figure something out.
Yeah.
Use that positive feedback to keep yourself going. Scientists even show that just anticipating getting an answer triggers reward centers in the brain. So curiosity itself feels good.
And this ties into how we view our own abilities. Another really critical mindset piece is the growth mindset. This term comes from psychologist Carol Dweck. It's the belief that intelligence, abilities, they aren't fixed. They can grow, develop significantly with effort and the right strategies.
Okay, so not just I'm smart or I'm not smart.
Exactly. It's about potential for growth. And the sources say that learners with this growth mindset, they challenge themselves, believe that they can achieve more and become stronger, more resilient, and creative problem solvers. Study after study shows they consistently outperform people who think their talent is just fixed, static.
Wow.
So practically, this means shifting your internal monologue. Instead of, I can't do this yet, but I will with practice.
That yet is powerful.
It really is. And see mistakes or difficult topics not as failures, but as feedback. Information showing you exactly where you need to focus your effort next. It's like your brain's got a built-in GPS, and a mistake is just a helpful rerouting, not a dead end.
Okay, so summarizing the mindset part. Feed your curiosity. Really believe your brain can change and grow. It's malleable.
Neuroplasticity?
Right. Celebrate the small wins to keep motivation high and just genuinely believe in your ability to learn. This positive attitude really fuels all the techniques we've been talking about. If you believe you can improve, you'll stick with it. You'll do that productive struggle.
And closely tied to this is metacognition. Fancy word, but it just means thinking about your own thinking.
Okay.
Metacognition is your ability to monitor how well you're understanding something, and this is the crucial part, adjust your learning approach based on that. Research links it directly to academic success. High performers, it turns out, are constantly checking in with themselves. Do I really get this? Could I explain it? Or am I just kind of skimming the surface?
So how can you, listening right now, put that into practice? Build some metacognitive habits after each study session. Ask yourself, what did I really grasp? Where was I shaky? What needs more work? Hey, for instance, self-questioning. Close the book. Try to summarize the key points in your own words. Attempt to practice problem from memory. This immediately flags the gaps.
Right, no hiding from yourself.
Exactly. Then, plan. Based on those gaps, decide what to review next. Maybe allocate extra time to that tricky topic. Or find a different explanation. Watch a video. Ask someone. And finally, adapt. If one method isn't clicking for you, maybe flashcards feel tedious, or an explanation is confusing. Switch it up. Try drawing diagrams, talking it through out loud, discussing it with a study partner.
Essentially, using these metacognitive habits, planning, monitoring, reflecting, turns you into your own learning coach, your own tutor. Nature's Educational Sciences research highlights that metacognition plays an important role in learning and academic achievement. So just be actively aware of how you're learning and don't hesitate to tweak things as you go.
Okay, so we've covered how to study actively. Now let's touch on the when and where. Building an effective routine is huge for focus and recall. First, you really have to eliminate distractions. Seriously. Phone away, notifications off. Find or create a quiet, dedicated study space.
Easier said than done sometimes, but critical.
It really is. And consistency helps. If you always study in the same place, your brain starts to associate that space with focus. It helps you get into study mode faster. Second, think about time management. The Pomodoro technique is really popular for a reason.
Yeah, those little tomatoes.
Right. You work in focused sprints, typically 25 minutes, they call them Pomodoros, then take a short 5-minute break. After maybe 4 sprints, take a longer break. The idea is breaking work into these intense bursts stops you from burning out and helps keep your attention sharp. Productivity guides say it improves focus, minimizes distractions, and prevents burnout. You can tweak the times right. If 25 minutes feels wrong, adjust it. The key is the regular breaks for resetting.
And something often overlooked, but absolutely vital, is sleep and just general health. A big 2021 meta-analysis looking at lots of studies showed clearly that missing sleep even just one night significantly hurts your ability to remember what you learned.
Wow. Okay, so pulling an all-nighter is actually counterproductive.
Massively counterproductive for long-term learning. In contrast, getting enough sleep before you study and after you study actively helps consolidate those new memories. Sleep is when the brain does a lot of its memory filing work.
Good to know.
So yeah, prioritize sleep. And also basic stuff. Eat well. Stay hydrated. Your brain needs fuel to work properly.
So building these habits like a quiet space, structured time like Pomodoro, good rest, it creates the foundation. It sets the stage for all the other techniques like active recall and Feynman to really work effectively.
Exactly. They all work together.
And consistency adds up. These small, smart practices, done regularly, they lead to much bigger learning gains over time. All right, let's do a quick recap. The key pillars for learning faster. 1. Switch on active learning. Use retrieval, practice flashcards, self-quizzing, teaching others.
Active mode.
2. Space out your review sessions over time, no cramming. 3. Use the Feynman technique to simplify and truly understand complex ideas. 4. Cultivate curiosity and a growth mindset. Stay motivated, believe you can improve.
Crucial.
5. Use metacognition. Think about your thinking, check your understanding, adapt your approach. And finally, 6. Build good habits. A focused environment, structured breaks, enough sleep. That supports everything else.
And when you combine all these science-backed pieces, studying really transforms. It stops feeling like a chore, hopefully,
Yeah.
and becomes more like an engaging challenge. You'll find you understand things quicker, remember them longer, and actually have more energy for tackling new ideas instead of feeling drained.
And here's a final thought, something to really take away with you. Think of your brain like a muscle. The more thoughtfully you train it using these kinds of methods, the stronger and faster it gets. Learning itself is a skill, and you're actively sharpening that skill right now. And that brings us to the end of this deep dive. We really hope you found some practical strategies, maybe a new perspective, to boost your own learning journey. Now, the next step is to actually try them out. Start small. Pick something you're curious about. Test yourself on it tomorrow. See what happens. And always remember our motto, enrich your mind and keep that curiosity burning bright. Whether you're learning a language, a new skill for work, or just exploring something fascinating, you now have more tools to learn faster. Thanks for listening and happy learning.